Namaste friends, it's your boy Crypto and welcome to the third episode of Walk the Talk Season 3 in Tel Aviv. As you have noticed by now, I am not in Tel Aviv, but rather in my hometown in Vienna, doing the introduction. But regardless, for the third episode, I've got someone very well known in the StarkNet and StarkWare ecosystem. The man himself, Sir David Engel, Head of Business Development from StarkWare. For this episode, we had a brief conversation about enterprises utilizing blockchain. I hope you enjoy it, and here's the intro. Hi guys, today we've got a special guest, Sir David Engel from StarkWare. Hi.
Hello, how are you? Thank you.
I'm great. Great event, great venue. Congratulations to the successful conference.
Full credit to the StarkWare marketing team.
Yeah, they did a really good job. So I guess without further ado, we'll start the walk and talk, and let's go this way. So, David, for the people who don't know you, could you give us a short introduction about yourself?
Sure, I'm Dave. I'm head of business development for StarkWare. I've been at the company for 6 months now. Before that, I was at AWS running FinTech and Web3, where StarkWare was a customer of mine. And I kind of just fell in love with them as a customer and decided I had to be part of the business. And my background, half American, half Australian, and maybe for the next half of my life, I'll be Israeli.
So Israel is a nice place. You got a nice place to live. And maybe could you give us a brief explanation? What is StarkX?
Sure. So StarkX is our layer 2 SaaS scaling solution. StarkX was actually the first product launched by StarkWare. We launched it with the intention of actually understanding whether or not we could scale Ethereum using our proving technology. And so that was our first product to market.
And you've got a lot of enterprises working on the StarkX. What other enterprises have approached you, like banks perhaps, or people from other industries?
So right now, StarkX is actually more for what I would call Web3 native companies, but oftentimes with a Web2 experience. So we have Immutable, the gaming platform, Sorare, the NFT fantasy sport platform. They've now done deals with Major League Baseball, with the Premier League, with European soccer, and with the NBA. So they're really just doing amazing work bringing Web3 to Web2 community. And then obviously dYdX as a perpetual exchange, and also Apex as two really large-scale perpetual exchanges that are building on StarkX. To your question around enterprise and what's the interest in enterprise, we're really just now starting to see a lot more interest from enterprises. And I think there's a few things about StarkX that is most interesting to them. So one thing is that they're now realizing that Ethereum is the most secure blockchain to build on. I think there was a history of trying to build on private blockchains where they would control the nodes, and ultimately it's insecure. If you only have, you and one counterparty controlling the nodes, it's really no different than a centralized platform. So they're understanding that Ethereum is the solution, the blockchain to settle on. They also realize that Ethereum doesn't scale, and that they need to find a layer 2. They understand, that the scale that we can deliver already makes it a very compelling platform. And then the third thing is that oftentimes they want their transactions to be confidential. So if a bank is facilitating a couple $100 million of trading volume in FX or treasuries or some other debt instrument, their customers don't want those transactions exposed publicly. It's proprietary. They don't want to be able to be front run. They want to be able to protect their customer privacy, both from a commercial and a regulatory perspective. And with Validium.availability mode, we have the ability to still settle the proof of those transactions on layer 1, but without actually revealing the transactions on layer 1. And so the combination of confidentiality, layer 1 security, and layer 2 scalability is a very exciting value prop for a lot of enterprises that we're talking to.
Speaking of enterprises, today you had a panel with Visa. Visa is experimenting with account abstractions. Could you tell us something about that, about the panel perhaps?
Sure. So we were lucky enough to have Kai Sheffield, who's head of crypto at Visa, come and speak with the panel. And that was probably the coolest BD I've ever done. So, like, very quick story. Visa reached out to us and said that they were going to do something on account abstraction and do an experiment. And would we be interested in reviewing the research paper that they'd written about it? We said sure. They sent us a research paper. They basically did a really cool POC where they wanted to do recurring payments using account abstraction. The innovative thing about that is that right now on Ethereum you can do push payments. That's where I send you a payment, and wallets are non-programmable would be a simple term. With recurring payments, it means that now you can pull payments. So if I'm a merchant and I want to set up a subscription with someone using account abstraction, I can now set up regular payments. I can build up, I can determine the payment amount, the payment frequency, where that wallet comes from, how it gets signed, and then I can start to pull payments. So obviously it opens up a whole new world of payment use cases. So Visa went ahead, built that, let us know that they built it. And since then we've been lucky enough to start talking with Kai in more detail, and he was kind enough to come and speak at our conference. And ultimately, I think for Visa, Visa is really about protecting consumers, doing payments and protecting consumers. And one of the the biggest risks or challenges with crypto is that either you do a custodied solution where you can get rugged, and we've seen too many examples of that, or you do self-custody. But if you lose your seed phrase, you're effectively rugging yourself. And so what Visa recognizes with account abstraction is that you can still do self-custody, but that you can build in capabilities so that you can do account recovery or multi-sig. And so all of a sudden, the risks around you effectively losing your seed phrase and losing your money gets mitigated. So Visa really sees it as an opportunity to continue to innovate in payments while continuing to protect the consumer.
Besides that, on the panel, Kai Sheffield also mentioned the hassles of settlement, because mostly settlement doesn't really work on the weekends and it's not 24/7, and blockchain might solve this problem. Especially for banking in terms of settlement, how could StarkX solve this kind of problems, as mentioned before?
Yeah, so what StarkX does is it's instant settlement. I mean, blockchain is instant settlement, right? Once I send my transaction to you, the money is yours. And a very, very large part of the capital used in just capital markets and in institutional finance is actually locked away as collateral because you have this, T+2 day settlement. So what that means, really simply, is that, if I lock up collateral to borrow some money from you, even after that transaction is settled and the collateral no longer needs to be locked up, sometimes it takes up to 2 days for that collateral to be returned to me. And that is just a horribly inefficient use of capital.
Not to mention the intermediaries for a settlement process.
That's another point, right? So you have this really inefficient use of capital where my capital is locked up even though it doesn't need to be. So now I'm waiting 2 days to be able to rehypothecate that capital. To your point, then, even when the capital is returned or when money's moved, sending an international bank transfer can touch between 4 and 6 different parties, and each of those parties is taking a cut. So it's not only is it slow, you're paying for the privilege of it being so slow. Now there's security benefits. Ultimately a lot of it is to help protect the consumer, but you can still get a lot of those benefits for the consumers through blockchain without necessarily having to go through this 4-party intermediary model. So I think what Visa's recognized is not just that they can actually provide a safer set of use cases or ways for consumers to use crypto. It actually becomes a more efficient, faster, and cheaper way for money to be transferred from A to B. And I think Kai made the point that where used to, like in Israel or in Austria, credit cards just work and it's very easy and the currency is stable. We're privileged in that way, and there's a lot of places, a lot of emerging markets where the currency isn't stable, or you don't necessarily trust the banks to hold your money, or it's just very expensive to send money. And so all of a sudden, Visa starting to kind of bring blockchain technologies in a secure way to a lot of emerging markets completely changes the way that kind of money can be used in those markets.
Prior to doing content creation, I was working at a bank, and I was always asking myself, why is this so slow? For example, if I had a transaction, if I would have a trade let's say in Germany, and it's actually nearby, it has to go via so many custodian banks, and it didn't make sense for me, and you had to pay fees like you mentioned it, especially for dividends. Why does it take like 4 or 5 days until I receive my dividends? It didn't make sense for me in a digital world.
Yeah, yeah. Look, part of it is regulatory, and regulations are there to protect consumers, but regulations are also kind of built on the premise of technology that's sometimes 40, 50, even 60 years old. So I think that regulation will change. You know, regulation is designed to change slowly, and I think that there's a very strong benefit to that because ultimately regulation is about protecting consumers. But at the same time, we now see that we have new technology that can actually be used safely, self-custody especially. And I want to make it very clear that there is just a world of difference between self-custody and a custodied solution, which is basically a banking solution that is less often less safe for customers, as we've seen with a whole bunch of recent fiascos. But I think self-custody combined with blockchain combined with account abstraction actually can create both fast and safe and easy to use blockchain solutions. And I think that's what we're seeing StarkWare create. StarkWare's partners like Argent and Bravos are really at the forefront of that. And it's really encouraging to see a company like Visa, which is as traditional as they get, really taking the lead and publicly doing so on kind of bringing about these innovations that ultimately will impact billions of people.
That's true. For me, witnessing Argent and Bravos is like Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. Both of them are very great. They're competing against each other, kind of, but respectfully as well. So it's very nice to watch, and as well, it's a statement when Visa is like kind of looking into it for me personally. So, well, with that being said, thank you very much, David, for your time, and that should be it for the episode of Walk the Talk.
It's a pleasure, and thank you, and thanks for everything that you're doing, man. You're also a credit to the ecosystem, so I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
No worries.
Goodbye, guys.